Hello and welcome to The Pulse. On Wednesday, the new Financial Secretary, Paul Chan, delivered his first and probably last budget, as this is the final one for the current administration. At a press conference to explain the budget, Mr. Chan was asked how much he'd actually contributed to drafting the fiscal policies during the month or so he's been in the position. He answered pretty much along the same lines as former Financial Secretary Ken Tsang answered us on this show just 2 weeks ago, saying that the budget is not a personal effort but a collective government policy. More on that later. But first, until relatively recently, the Hong Kong police force has gone a long way towards improving its reputation as the best police force money can buy after the dark days of the 1970s when police officers stormed the ICAC offices demanding not to be prosecuted for decades of corruption. There has not been another major police force gathering until last Wednesday, when police officers and their supporters came together to express their anger over the conviction of 7 policemen for beating up protester Ken Tsang during the Occupy Central protests. Given the history of police protests, it was perhaps surprising to see Maria Tam, the head of the ICAC's Operations Review Committee, addressing the crowd. The meeting was organised by the Junior Police Officers Association and the Hong Kong Police Inspectors Association. The association said that more than 30,000 current and retired officers and their families attended. They shouted, "Fight for justice," complained that protesters had called them bad names, chanted foul language slogans, and compared themselves and their treatment to that of Jewish people in Europe during World War II. That shocked many, including the Israeli Consulate in Hong Kong, which on Thursday issued a statement saying that this reference was inappropriate and regretful, and that it wished no further comparison will be made to the Jewish Holocaust. The German consulate also expressed unease, stating that the comparison between the Jewish victims of the Holocaust and police officers convicted for an abuse of power is utterly inappropriate. Well, with me in the studio now are Senior Counsel and former Chairman of the Bar, Dykes, and legislator Priscilla Leung. Priscilla Leung, can I come to you first? You were at the rally this week of these police officers. Do you, in fact, think it is appropriate for law enforcers to even hold a rally which challenges the findings of a court?
I think people need to understand thoroughly what has happened in that meeting. At first, very few legislators were invited. I participated in some of their former gatherings before, talking about the police welfare and also conditions of their service. So this time when we were invited, actually...
I'm not really asking whether it was appropriate for you to be there, but whether the entire thing was something that should have happened.
First of all, when we first stepped in, they already said they really want the Legislative Council to seriously consider passing a legislation to protect them from being seriously, severely insulted when they were exercising their duty. The second thing is I think they have a lot of temperament that they would like to share among their fellow colleagues.
So you were happy with them swearing,
comparing
of course not. To the Jews who were massacred in the Holocaust?
Yeah, of course not.
You condemn that, do you?
Yeah, I truly disagree with those comparisons. We also found it very weird to have such kind of comparison. So I think they need to review why one of the speakers would use that example. We observed a really very united force and voice trying to draw the attention of the public that they have been severely suffering from being insulted, losing the dignity and the dignified and respectable manner.
But excuse me, but the rally was a protest against the court decision.
No, I think that is the wrong impression of the public. They have all the time saying that they respected the judicial decision. And they were actually talking about how to help the 7 policemen to appeal, and they did not have enough money.
Did that make you uncomfortable, the fact that...
Yes, I was surprised to see such a turnout, one would have thought that the legitimate concerns of the police could be channeled through the proper channels within the police force, and you would not have to have resort to a mass rally. And the perception is it was a protest against the judgment, as I say, with better management.
It was certainly reported as such.
I say I was not invited to the rally. I can only go off what press reports say, and that's the impression. And of course there were insensitive comments that you mentioned made by people speaking at the meeting.
Because the thing which you are now taking forward is this idea of legislation, a new act to stop insulting the police. Such legislation exists, doesn't it?
I think we do not need to have a separate act. We try to look into some of the existing legislation to see whether we might be able to help. In fact, this is not a new voice. It has lasted for 2.5 years. But I have to say from my observation, the government is not eager at all. So as legislator, we need to address this strong requests or voices from, I think, from the police.
Yes, but I mean, if it's not new, what's the point of doing it?
It's not new voice, but we need to address this concern more seriously. We really need to draw the attention to discuss again whether policemen or police force should be given a respectable environment to work.
So you want a special status for the police force in society, is that what you're saying?
Special status or a respectable environment, and the job requires dignity. And if you come across the same kind of experience like us, during Occupy Central, we walked back to the Legislative Council. I personally also experienced very severe insults every day.
Well, you're a politician, get used to it.
So yes, that's why we need to speak for the police who are exercising their duty. You can't take for granted that people who got paid, they are policemen, they should be insulted.
Let me ask Mr. Dykes, I mean, is such legislation required? I thought statute covered all of this.
If we have police forces, those are disciplined services, it's essentially a civilian force. And police officers are like everybody else in society. And other people in society may complain, I'm insulted by this. So that's one objection, if you legislate just for the police. Legislation criminalising insulting behaviour per se was a feature of English legislation until, I think, 2013, 2014. The Public Order Act 1986, I think it was, introduced legislation which made it an offence to have insulting, threatening, abusive behaviour. The problem with prosecutions for insulting behaviour, because when it was found that the offence, when used by civilians, was being used in the context of arguments on the street about somebody preaching for a religious sect and somebody objecting to the sect, or it became arguments about people's skin and perceived slights. For the police, when the police used the offence, it was used in a rather heavy-handed manner. So, in other words, if there's threatening behaviour or abusive behaviour, which carries a bit more than mere insulting behaviour, the law bites.
You now seem to have the law enforcement arm of the law in confrontation with the judicial arm of the law. Is that a problem?
Another point. Yes. Any perceived confrontation or difference of opinion has the unfortunate consequence of course, the judiciary cannot defend itself. And people have to point out that judges have a job. They swear an oath to do justice to all, and they do that, and they do their best. The system has worked like that for hundreds of years. It's generally accepted in Hong Kong. And when it's perceived to be problematic, it usually works itself out.
Now the public different sector. After Occupy Central, young people seems that if they have a higher deal, they have a higher goal, they might breach the law. It seems to be a casual decision now. And then older generation, those middle age, then they lose confidence about the law. And you can see a lot of comments and remarks, and all these people, they are unhappy with the judgment, or they may be unhappy with the law. The law part is our job, the Legislative Council, whether we should amend the law, we should look into some of the loopholes in the law. But you can see that is more important. I really hope that we can have a social settlement.
I mean, do you think the police force has become politicised in recent years, and this is the crux of the problem here?
I don't think the force has been politicised, but certainly events in Hong Kong have resulted in confrontation, polarisation of views. Police officers enter the force, I hope, with their eyes wide open, and they know that occasionally they'll be called upon to police situations where there will be excitable tempers, and it's their job to deal with it, and to deal with it in a professional way, because they are bound under Section 10 of the Police Force Ordinance to carry out the duties to enforce the law, obey the law, and protect the public. That's the job.
Yeah. That's why we need to look into the law.
Well,
the law may not be able to protect our police force or public officers to exercise their duty in a respectable way that they deserve.
Both of you, thank you very much indeed. And we'll be back after the break. Welcome back. After just a month in his new position, Financial Secretary Paul Chan delivered his first budget on Wednesday. It contained few big surprises, but yet again, the size of the surplus was a bit of a surprise. This time, it totaled 92 billion Hong Kong dollars. Given the size of the surplus, many were hoping that more of this cash hoard would be used to help the poor and the middle classes.
Two-thirds of the $92.8 billion surplus will be earmarked for elderly services, sports and innovation. $10 billion will go to supporting technological development, $20 billion for sports, and $30 billion for elderly and disabled services.
In terms of objective, we need to develop our economies and to improve people's livelihood. This is number one. Number two is to invest into the future so that we will remain competitive, our economy will continue to grow, and we will be able to offer our people quality jobs. And the third objective is to promote social justice and also at the same time sharing the fruits of success.
However, he says that public spending must be fit for purpose. Among the relief measures, salary and profits taxes will be slashed by up to 75%, subject to a ceiling of $20,000. Some 3 million property owners will have rates waived for the entire year, subject to a ceiling of $1,000 per quarter. An extra payment equal to a month bonus will be given to recipients of comprehensive Social Security assistance, OH allowance, and disability allowance.
It sets aside $30 billion for helping the elderly and the disabled, which is very good. It's unprecedented. But we want to have some concrete timetable and plans. There's nothing for the so-called and-nothing people. Those people who do not live in the public housing, do not receive any public benefits, but are low income. And there's really no relief for them. And we also understand that the Community Care Fund has cut off subsidy for them this year. So this is the really most disappointing.
One of the highlights of Chan's budget was the implementation of the new free quality kindergarten education scheme, replacing the pre-primary education voucher scheme launched 10 years ago. However, the total education budget of some $78 billion has been criticized for its failure to focus where needs are greatest.
中小學面對最大嘅問題就係教師編制不足同埋滿班嘅人手，學生人數過多。咁所以而家要解決中小學嗰個教育嘅問題呢，其實最重要就係改善前試教師嘅待遇同埋常額教師嘅編制。咁所以即係見到今年嘅呢一個教育開支係冇針對住呢一個而家業界面對最急切嘅問題去處理。
And Chan is planning to set up a tax policy unit to explore broadening the tax base and look at how the tax regime impacts Hong Kong's competitiveness.
In fact, we are facing competitions from the neighboring markets. Years ago, our corporate tax rate was 16.5%, and now our corporate tax rate is still 16.5%. But looking at the surrounding countries, they have cut down their tax rate drastically, and Hong Kong is no longer a very competitive in terms of tax rate. And also, other countries have provided different tax incentives, and in general, Hong Kong doesn't have tax incentives. Now, I'm not saying that we must provide different type of tax incentive to different businesses. We need to be selective and careful in terms of attracting the right type of businesses to come to Hong Kong, and this would be the task of the tax policy units.
$70 billion in this year's budget has been allocated for public health. Some $54 billion of that will go to the Hospital Authority. Mental health services were very much the subject of attention after the incident 2 weeks ago, when a man with a history of mental health problems set fire to a MTR compartment at Tsim Sha Tsui Station, causing many severe casualties. The government plans to spend $73 million to hire more psychiatrists, nurses and therapists and reduce the waiting time for mental health services. Chen Kim-po, the functional constituency legislator for insurance, says that the aging population is one of the main reasons public medical services are under so much pressure. He welcomes the government initiative of introducing a public annuity scheme to manage pensions and theoretically reward the elderly with higher than inflation fixed monthly returns.
而家係有啲年金嘅計劃嘅，但係可能個市場唔夠成熟咧，同埋個金額太少啊，即係可能我講緊10零億啊咁，同我哋相對諗緊話，如果你有幾百億到1000億嘅咧，其實嗰個回報會好好多啦。
Another government initiative to funnel patients from public services to private ones is to offer tax deductions for those who take up regulated insurance products. The administration says it will work out the details soon. However, worryingly for proponents of private insurance, insurer AIA Hong Kong sent out a letter to a few hundred private doctors at the end of January, warning that it may refuse to pay for hospitalization for certain kinds of surgery, such as colonoscopies or cataracts, unless there is proven medical need. It will, it says, make an exception for cases where surgery has to be done in the hospital rather than a day medical clinic, where general anesthesia is required or where the patient is suffering from a stroke, pneumonia or similar.
我哋冇話影響佢嘅專業決定，冇話過一樣嘢係佢哋而家啲醫生係做得邊樣嘢特別話係話醫療嘅需求係唔啱啊，成呢樣嘢我哋冇講過。我哋碰到好多問題，就醫生個答案係好唔清晰。咁變咗嚟講，好多時候我哋都需要再問佢啦。咁究竟點解你寫嗰啲嘢會係咁樣？但係我哋真係唔係好明白。咁譬如我哋喺一個公佈上邊都有講過，有啲收到嘅 case 因為個客覺得舒服啦，咁啊冇乜必要嘅即係去想咯。咁即係呢啲對我哋嚟講唔係一個叫做 medical necessary 嘅 case 咯。
Dr. Gabriel Choi, Vice President of the Hong Kong Medical Association, has described AIA's move as unacceptable and warned that carrying out such procedures in day medical clinics is not entirely safe.
AIA has created its own list of doctors who are able to fulfill AIA's requirement, and this is a preferred list, which is not what the Medical Council accepts.
AIA denies it has such a preferred list. For the moment, other insurance companies say they do not have any plan to follow AIA's example. AXA Hong Kong says it does not issue any guidelines on medical needs to doctors and always respects their professional judgments. Prudential Hong Kong says it invariably respects the best interests of its insurers. The Hong Kong Federation of Insurers has described AIA's letter as an isolated case, but the Federation reminds insurers to be cautious about their claims because too many could result in higher insurance fees.
我哋喺聯會裏邊嘅數字咧，2014年有一半嘅入院嘅 claim 係講緊係大腸同胃鏡嘅嚇。咁如果呢個數字講緊越嚟越多，亦都個數字講緊2倍、3倍比日間手術上升，你幻想得到嗰個賠償比例同埋個保費一度會升高嘅，一升高就自然羊毛出自羊身上。
And that's it for this week. We'll leave you with more images of that police gathering on Wednesday night. See you next week. For now, goodbye.
執法，皇冠鎮壓，地頭一刻，大人性定走反。愛香港，愛香港。